Today, I want to show you how to build an AI strategy in 2026. Many business leaders think that building an AI strategy is about selecting the right tools, ChatGPT, copilots, AI agents, whatever's hot. But that's one of the big reasons that 95% or more of AI projects fail. My name is Joshua Ebner. I've spent 20 years in AI and data science, and I've watched multiple AI and technology waves with a front row seat. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I think about AI strategy, what to focus on, where to invest your time and money, what to avoid, and how to select projects that will drive return on investment. Let's start with a thing that almost everyone right now is getting wrong. In the AI age, you actually need to prioritize human beings. If you want to build a great AI strategy, you actually need to prioritize human beings and human expertise. Now, human beings are going to be important for building the system, essentially AI engineers and machine learning engineers, but you also need subject matter experts. This is really key. Arguably, and this has been true for years in the previous waves of AI, things like neural networks, machine learning systems, predictive systems, and so on, arguably the most important person in any AI project is the human expert. That's because you need a human expert to help define the exact goals that a system should hit. You need a human being or a human expert to build out a training data set. Artificial intelligence, many people forget this, needs to be trained. That is not just the foundation models like ChatGPT or Claude. That's also internally. If you want to leverage AI inside of a workflow, you often need to build a small data set to train or custom tune an AI system on. Who does that? It's the human being. It's a human expert. So teams of AI engineers and human beings, product engineers will work together to figure out exactly how to build an AI system. I'm telling you all of this because many executives and business leaders think that they will be able to automate everything away, and many other people inside of a business are kind of fearful about using AI because they think it's going to automate all of the jobs out of existence. I don't think that's true. I think that human beings are going to be a critical piece of any AI first company. And if you want to build a strategy, you need to start thinking about how do you prioritize human experts and getting them involved in these projects and processes alongside AI engineers, UX engineers, and product developers. Another counterintuitive thing that you're going to run into if you want to build a great AI strategy is that an AI strategy shouldn't start with AI. It starts with something else. And that brings us to our next point. You need to start with your business problems. So one really big mistake that I'm seeing executives and business leaders make is they're trying to focus on tools. So you're very commonly hearing executives say things like, we need copilots or we need AI agents. Those things can help, but those things also only solve very particular types of problems in very specific ways. If you want to increase your revenue, an AI agent probably isn't where I would start. If you need to increase your customer sat, an AI agent might be able to help, but there are other tools and techniques that I would probably recommend first. So what I'm getting at is that if you want to use AI to maximum effect, you need to start thinking about what business problems you're trying to solve. Once you identify the business problem, then you work backwards. You start brainstorming which AI techniques might be available. You figure out which ones are going to be difficult or easy to build. We'll talk about that in a second. You try and figure out which ones are going to bring the most return on investment. We'll also talk about that in a second. But everything starts with identifying the specific business problem and then working backwards. By the way, if you want to know if your company is really ready to use AI, click the link in the description below. Go take my AI readiness assessment. It's 15 questions. It'll take you less than 3 minutes, and it will score you on 3 major areas that will tell you your AI readiness. Click on the link in the description and take the AI readiness assessment right now. Once you've identified the specific business problems you're trying to solve, you need to work backwards to some very specific things. You need to try and figure out how difficult an AI system will be to build. And that brings us to our next point. You need to focus on your data. Why? Because the data is one of the key components in almost any AI system. Whether you're building a predictive system or an AI agent or something else, you're almost always going to need some type of data. That data can be in different formats. That's something that I'll talk about maybe in a separate video. It can get a little bit complex. But you need to think about what data you have or don't have, how clean or ready that data is, where the data is it centralized or not, and so on. If your data isn't clean and ready, then it might be very difficult to build the AI system that you have in mind. So, one thing that you're going to want to think about as you're trying to build out an AI strategy for 2026 is starting to look at your data resources and your data readiness. If you can start building out your data foundations and validating that everything is kind of in working order, you will put yourself in a much better position for the remainder of 2026 and beyond. Your data investments now are going to enhance all of your future AI investments. Now, talking about the difficulty of building an AI system and talking about the data assets actually brings us to my next point. You need to evaluate every AI project on both ROI and difficulty. So you can sort of evaluate and plot every AI project or AI idea on a grid that consists of two axes: the return on investment and the difficulty. The return on investment can sometimes be a little bit fuzzy, but it can also be kind of precise. You need to think about this in terms of revenue, profit, cash flows, risk reduction, or other key metrics. And with respect to the difficulty, it usually includes the difficulty of getting the right data. It includes the cost to build it, building the architecture, getting the right people to build it. Sometimes certain types of systems can be more expensive than others if it requires special skill sets. You also might want to think about the long-term cost to run or operate an AI system that can sometimes factor in. Now, I'll say here, you don't need to estimate everything perfectly. You're typically trying to get a relative ROI versus different projects and a relative difficulty. Having said that, it can help to have expertise on your team as you're evaluating different projects. And that includes a relatively broad group of people: subject matter experts, machine learning experts, data experts, and then business experts. Having a broad team of people as you're trying to evaluate return on investment and difficulty for various AI ideas, having that broad team of people can help you get a little bit more accuracy on those evaluations. But as I said, you're often not going to estimate these things perfectly right out of the gate. And that brings us to my next point. If you want to build a great AI strategy in 2026, you need to prototype ruthlessly and then kill or scale. When you have an AI project that appears to be, let's say, high ROI and maybe reasonable difficulty, something that you are willing to invest in, you typically don't want to go for a moonshot, investing and going all in. In fact, you often want to try and prototype it first to validate that your estimates of return on investment and difficulty are somewhat accurate. So you're typically going to start with a small prototype just to figure out how difficult, in fact, it will be to build, and if it's likely to deliver the return on investment that you're looking for. So you want to start with a small prototype, do that for a couple of weeks just to get a better sense of the ROI and difficulty. If something ends up being much more difficult to build than you initially anticipated, you can kill the project. Or alternatively, if it seems like the ROI is actually going to be relatively low, if your prototype isn't driving your revenue or some key metric in a way that you expected it to, you can kill the project. On the other hand, if you build your prototype, if the difficulty is within reasonable levels and the ROI seems to be there on some key metric, you can scale it out. This, by the way, is how many of the best companies in the world think about using new technology. Amazon and Jeff Bezos are kind of famous for doing it this way. Now, after you start thinking about AI strategy this way, in terms of getting the right human beings in place, getting the right data, picking the right problems, estimating ROI, prototyping, and so on, you need to combine everything together into a system that drives competitive advantage and compounds over time. That's what I call the AI flywheel. If you want to understand how that flywheel works and how you can build one inside of your own company, check out this next video, the AI flywheel.